Now that you've done your paper chromatography, you're going to have to do something called calculating your RF values. And that's so that you can give some context to the smears of color that have showed up on your chromatography paper. So looking at your chromatography paper, let's say for example that you have 3 different smears of color. Let's say you have a blue smear, and you have a green smear, and you have your red smear. Okay? On the very top, don't forget that you've marked where your solvent line is, and I'm going to mark this SL for solvent line. Once you have this, you're going to want to get a ruler, and you're going to make some measurements. The first measurement that you want to make is, starting from your X, that's going to be your starting line. Okay? So measuring from here all the way up to your solvent line, that's going to be your very first measurement. The next thing you're going to want to do is look at your first smear of color, which in this case is blue. Instead of trying to measure the entire smear, because that might be kind of hard because the very edges are going to be pretty light, you're going to want to estimate the exact middle of your blue smear. Whatever, yours might not be blue, but the first color smear that you have. Again, remember, we're not going to start measuring from here at the tip of the paper. We're going to measure from here. Okay? So measuring from the very starting point, your X, and going up to midway up your first smear, that's going to be your second measurement. Your third measurement will be looking at your green smear. So remember, we're going to use this as our starting point, and my green smear goes all the way up here. Remember, the edges might be hard to see, so we're going to pick the exact middle of the green, which would be right here. Alright? So what we're going to do is this is going to be your third measurement. Lastly, we're always going to start from our X, from our base, and we're going to come up and see that the red goes up here. We don't go to the very edge, remember, we go to the very middle of the red smear, which is right about here. That's the middle of the red smear. And we're going to come out, and this is going to be our fourth measurement. You might not have 3 smears, you might have less, you might have more, but this is how you're going to do every single one of your measurements. Alright? Once you've done all your measurements, you're going to start calculating RF. And to calculate RF, the formula is the distance traveled by the solute divided by the distance traveled by the solvent. So the distance traveled by the solvent is basically how far up your solvent got. So this is always going to be your number 1, this measurement right here. Okay? So for example, let's say that my number 1 was 10 centimeters, my second one was 2 centimeters, my third one was 4 centimeters, and my fourth one was 7 centimeters. Okay? If I wanted to calculate the RF of my blue, I would look, and the distance traveled by my blue, I'm going to use my measurement, not what it looks like on the paper, but my measurement, which would be 2 centimeters divided by the distance traveled by my solvent when I look is 10 centimeters. So I'm going to do my math, and my RF value for my blue is 0.2. I'm going to do the same thing for every single one of my smears. So my RF value for my green, I'm going to look, alright, distance traveled by the solute, distance traveled by green was 4 centimeters, and the distance traveled by my solvent was 10 centimeters, so my RF value for my green is 0.4, and for red, it's going to be 0.7. You'll notice that RF doesn't have a unit, and that's fine. So when you're done, you can box your answers, and you'll be set.